Part 44. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 431. Ha 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 ha, as powerful as you, Jesus Bulletin laughed. You are indeed powerful, but Captain, don't forget, you are a member of the Roger Pirates. Will the world government and the Navy let you become the king of the Shishibukai? Lucky Lou also laughed. The rest of Shanks's crew all laughed at this guy. It can be seen that this pirate group usually has a very harmonious relationship. And there is no particularly serious relationship between superiors and subordinates. Everyone is interacting on an equal footing. They are friends and partners. Shanks was very upset by the ridicule of these people and retorted in a loud voice, "Don't believe it yet, maybe the world government and Navy can't understand this now, but when they do, looking at the sea, can they find someone like me who has the qualifications and potential to challenge the new world's structure? When the time comes, they really want Wang Xiaoshi Shibukai to become a sharp knife, and they might ask for it on my head. Ha ha ha, if such a day comes, I will stand on my head." Yaobu didn't believe it at all and clamored to swear. But at this moment, the door of the tavern was suddenly pushed open. A cool breeze blew into the tavern, causing everyone in the tavern to look back. The same goes for Shanks and others. Then, their expressions became serious. Jesus Bulletin followed without any more nonsense. He took out the short musket hanging from his waist and held it in his hand, with a murderous look in his eyes. Because there were 3 people who pushed in the door of the tavern. And these 3 people, all wearing masks and white robes, looked mysterious. Maybe many people don't know what they are. But Shanks is also a veteran pirate with qualifications, and he recognized them at a glance. They were the CP-0 members of the world government. Only intelligence agencies like them can make themselves so mysterious. I really don't know what they were thinking, coming up with such an iconic look and then sneaking into it. Are you still asking for information? All it takes is the words "I am a spy" written on your head, okay. Shanks has been sitting in the tavern for so long, so he naturally knows that there are no other big shots in this tavern. These people come here, most likely, for them. But there is something strange in my heart. The CP agency has always not paid much attention to pirate affairs. Matters such as catching pirates are handled by the Navy headquarters. What are they doing here today? As expected, the 3 people's eyes swept around the tavern, and then stopped at Shanks and his group. Then, the 3 people walked towards them very calmly. "Hello, Captain, it seems you are here to find us? Do you want to strike first?" The muzzle of the gun in Jesus Bulletin's hand moved slightly, and he asked with an evil smile on his lips. Shanks raised his brows slightly, and then said, "Don't worry, it doesn't seem like he's looking for trouble." In fact, Shanks has been out to sea with the red-haired pirates for so long, and he has almost never provoked the world government. On the one hand, he has done all the major things he should have done in the Roger Pirates before. There is no need to continue doing these things to gain fame or anything. On the other hand, it is because he knows that sooner or later he will enter the new world and have to fight Orgrim sooner or later. With Orgrim like this, a powerful opponent is waiting for him. Shanks's balls are hurting. Do you have to turn on the hell mode? And then provoke the Navy headquarters and the world government? Now there is obviously a conflict between Orgrim and the world government. There is something dirty. Otherwise, can Doflamingo be the king of the Shishibukai? Therefore, if both sides make enemies, one day these 2 families may have no moral integrity and get together, and they will arrange for him to be Shanks. It's obvious. Isn't this embarrassing? So Shanks rarely provokes the world government and doesn't care about the Navy's nonsense. In this way, the world government should have no reason to trouble him. Sure enough, just as Shanks guessed, the 3 CP-0 people stopped in front of Shanks and others, leaving some space for both parties. And they had no intention of taking action. Instead, he fell silent. Shanks frowned slightly and said, "If there's nothing else, please don't disturb our enjoyment of drinking here, okay?" As soon as he finished speaking, the leader of CP-0 said in a deep voice, the red-haired. Shanks picked up the wine glass and took a sip, then said calmly, "I have to say that this guy usually seems indifferent, but when it's time to show off his momentum, he still has the momentum of a big boss." A simple word fell. His aura changed, and even the people in the tavern felt a strong oppressive force. This is the harbinger of overlord color and domineering energy. Shanks, this guy, has such a domineering look and aura that is rare in this world. How strong is it? The domineering look of ordinary people is just a power of intimidation. Shanks' overlord-colored domineering energy doesn't even have to be unleashed, it can even affect matter. Whitebeard's Moby Dick is also a rare and powerful battleship, but it will be damaged under his domineering domination. Seemingly intimidated by Shanks' momentum, the three CP-0 men did not speak immediately. But because they were wearing masks, it was impossible to see any change in their expressions. After a moment of silence, the CP-0 man spoke. "Our world government has a deal that we would like to discuss with you. I wonder if you are interested." Shanks' eyes narrowed slightly, and the rest of the pirate group also looked a little strange. If it were an ordinary pirate, he would never negotiate with the world government, let alone cooperate. But for some reason, after Shanks was silent for a while, he said, "Tell me. Our world government believes that you may be able to serve as a member of the King's Shishibukai. If we both reach cooperation on this matter, the world government will fully support you." Of course, it's secretly CP. The member of Zero spoke softly. For some reason, it seemed that no one in the surrounding tavern was paying attention to this matter, and all of them had expressionless faces. His eyes seemed to be unfocused, as if he was delirious. There is no doubt that this is a manifestation of being affected by a certain devil fruit ability. Shanks naturally noticed this, so he didn't care about the inappropriate venue. He grinned and looked at Jesus Bulletin in a funny way. His expression was also very sad. "Fortunately, I didn't finish what I just said. Otherwise, wouldn't I have to stand upside down and have diarrhea? Isn't this slap in the face too quick? Is the world government out of its mind to actually invite Shanks to become the king of the Shishibukai? Could it be that, as Shanks said just now, the world government intends for the Shishibukai organization to truly establish their high profile? Interesting. You probably don't know my identity, right? Invite me to be the king of the Shishibukai," Shanks said with a smile. CP. This member of Zero also felt a little unhappy. Because this is not the demand of their CP-0, but the demand of the Navy headquarters. The newly promoted Navy Marshal from the Warring States period seemed to be making big news as soon as he came to power. First, the proposal to increase naval military expenditures was made in Marijo. The world government agreed. Later, the Warring States period proposed to increase the deterrent power of the Shishibukai and select a person with enough potential and qualifications to carry the banner of the Shishibukai and be able to penetrate the new world like a sharp knife in the future. The world government originally intended to use the power of the King's Shishibukai to penetrate the new world and exert their influence. The Navy has always been uncooperative and even held back. But the Navy operates within rules, and it's hard for them to say anything, let alone directly intervene in management. After all, although the Navy is their subordinate organization, it still needs some face. You can't just grab their faces and slap them all day long, and make them work hard for you, right? It's better now. I don't know if it's because he became a marshal in the Warring States period and he became enlightened, or what happened. In short, if he is willing to let go of the reins around the neck of His Majesty Shishibukai, then the world government will naturally be happy to do so. Otherwise, what would they do if they brought out the Kibutai under the king? Therefore, this proposal was quickly passed. As for the Warring States period, there is also a candidate who is not sure, and that is Shanks, who has been eyeing for a long time. This kind of errand, Sengoku, a cautious guy, did not miss any opportunity and directly handed it over to CP-0, asking them to contact the red-haired Shanks and persuade Shanks to join the King's Shichibukai. CP-0 I just feel like a dog. So who is red-haired Shanks? How can the world's most powerful intelligence agency not know what to do? Which of the former crew members of Roger the Pirate King is not a proud and arrogant one? You expect him to join the King's Shichibukai and serve as a lackey for the world government and your navy. Isn't this a joke? But the definition given by Sengoku this time is also very clear. The navy will face Shanks in a truly cooperative manner, instead of dealing with guys like Moliana like in the past. This left the CP-0 agency speechless. In addition, during this period of time, their performance within the world government is indeed worrying. The navy is now riding on their heads, and they can't resist at all. Under the order of Wulaoxing, he had no choice but to bite the bullet and find Shanks. In this matter, the naval marshal of the Warring States period was indeed a thief. On the one hand, he showed the navy's attitude, which is very upright. We are willing to cooperate with the world government to strengthen the Shichibukai organization. This is progress. But at the same time, the real problem was thrown to CP-0. It's good now. If it's done well, it's him who takes the credit for the Warring States period. If this thing gets messed up, it's your CP-0 who will be in trouble. What the hell, it's so uncomfortable. But the former Marshal of the Navy headquarters is now the Commander-in-Chief, and he can do whatever he wants to your CP agency. Do you still think this is the old era? Go ahead and do your work. Of course, we have a clear understanding of your details. Of course, we also understand your various legendary experiences, but this does not hinder our cooperation, CP the member of Zero spoke softly. Shanks had a smile on his face, and then waved his hand slightly and said, "It's a pity that you have to go all the way in vain. I'm sorry, I don't have the intention to become the king of the 7 warlords now. You can go with someone else, choose." I think you should think about it again. CP-0 people did not give up and seemed to want to persuade them. But Shanks's expression changed at this time, and the smile was gone. The domineering aura in his body instantly pressed on the 3 people, and he shouted in a low voice, "Get out!" Under the mask, CP-0 the faces of the 3 of them were all pale, and they could not resist Shanks' powerful momentum. He endured the humiliation and anger in his heart, but in the end he could only leave here in despair. After they left, the tavern returned to normal again. No one seemed to notice that they had fallen into a state of trance just now, and they were still chatting lively. Shanks, on the other hand, put down the wine glass in his hand with a smile, looked at Jesus Bulletin in a funny way and said, "What did you just say?" Jesus Bulletin's expression changed and he pretended that nothing had happened. Said, come, have a drink, I'll invite you this time." Ha 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 ha. Lucky Lou first laughed at Jesus Bulletin, and then said with a serious expression, "Captain, are you really right? The world government actually invited you to join the King's Shichibukai. Why did you refuse?" "Don't I want to lose face?" Shanks rolled his eyes and said. "I, Shanks, am a person with the face fruit ability. If you invite me to join the King's Shichibukai, at least you can send someone more powerful and someone with a good reputation, right? Just 3 of them. You little guy, you come up to me and tell me what to do, and I have to join in obediently? Haha, do you really think that I, Shanks, am some unworthy little character? It's not impossible for them to want me to join the King's Shichibukai, but they have to have someone like a Navy Admiral to talk to me." Shanks waved his hands domineeringly and said, "Please give me flowers and monthly tickets. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates." Author, Zippo. Chapter 432. Admiralty Marineford. At this time, Warring States was sitting in his marshal's office. He didn't deal with any official business. It seemed that he was already busy with today's affairs. Instead, he was holding a writing brush in his hand, writing something like calligraphy on a piece of open rice paper. His pen was vigorous and powerful, and there was a sense of military strength between the lines. There were only 2 words written on the paper: strong army. But these 2 words seemed to carry the momentum of thousands of troops, full of evil. Stopping his pen, Warring States nodded with a slightly satisfied expression, then picked up a square seal from the table, pressed it on the rice paper, and left his seal. Above are the words Admiral of the Navy Warring States period. After he finished this action, a man standing in front of the table spoke. There was a hint of flattery in his tone, and he said flatteringly without hesitation, the calligraphy of the Marshal is really unique in the world. I wonder if I have the opportunity to collect it? As the saying goes, don't hit someone with a smiling face, but everyone can carry the sedan chair. Although Warring States is also an upright guy, if someone is willing to flatter him, of course he is willing to listen. I saw a smile on Sengoku's face, glanced at the guy, and said, "You're commander of CP-9, it's not a good idea to ask for the handwriting of my Navy Marshal, right?" "That's right." Standing at Sengoku at this time, the person in front of the Marshal was Spangdine, the commander-in-chief of CP-9. Spangdine didn't look embarrassed at all when he listened to Sengoku's words. He spoke in a very serious tone. "Master Marshal, what are you talking about? Although we belong to 2 organizations, don't we all work for the world government? As brother organizations, we should be friendly and cooperate with each other. How can others? I don't know what I think. Anyway, I regard Navy Headquarters Marineford as my home. We are really close." "What you said is correct." Sengoku smiled and nodded. Unlike other CP agencies, CP-9 is under the Camp Agency, but in fact, it has always cooperated more with the Navy. The relationship between the 2 parties is pretty good. Spangdon is also a flexible and versatile person. When he was in O'Hara, he was cooperating with the operations of the Navy headquarters. If you want to say why, the reason is very simple. Other CP agencies and headquarters are here. On board Marijoya, naturally it doesn't get along with the Navy headquarters, and it insists that it is the organization closest to the Celestial Dragons, so it has an air of arrogance. However, the headquarters of CP-9 is located on the island that never sleeps, Judiciary Island. First of all, most of the pirates caught by the Navy headquarters will go to Judiciary Island, be convicted according to the process, and then imprisoned in Impelton. After this back and forth, the communication with CP-9 will naturally a lot. Secondly, Judiciary Island, Marineford, and Impelton are called the 3 fortresses of justice. They are a trinity. Impelton is a subordinate agency of the Navy headquarters. Although CP-9 is not, it is in this trinity. Within the system, of course, it is more or less strongly influenced by the Navy headquarters. In addition, Commander Spangdon is a slippery guy who is good at maneuvering, so the relationship between the 2 parties is still good. As for whether CP-0 has any influence on this, what do you think? No, this is their tacit consent. Although the relationship between them and the Navy headquarters is very bad, in the end, they are still a family under the world government. There is inevitably something that requires cooperation, and CP-9 is the one sitting in the middle. They also need someone who can communicate with the Navy headquarters. Therefore, they have always maintained a tacit attitude towards the wavering of CP-9. After laughing, Sengoku shook his head and said, "But the word strong army is not suitable for you. I am going to put it in the officer training camp of my Navy. It can be regarded as a little statement. If you really want it, I will write a special one for you another day." "Ha ha ha ha, Marshal, I will remember what you said. When the time comes to ask for it, You have to admit it, Spangdan said with a smile. This tone was very familiar. Senguo didn't care about anything with him. For Senguo, the naval marshal, CP-9 can be regarded as a buffer relationship with the CP agency, no need to break up with them. Okay, can I still regret what I promised you? Let's not talk about this anymore and continue to talk about what happened just now. The red-haired guy refused. Marshal Warring States raised his eyebrows and asked. Spangdan took 2 steps forward, helped the naval marshal Warring States clear up the paper and ink on the table, and said at the same time, that's right, CP, those people with -0 seem to be very arrogant on weekdays. If you really want them to do something, how can you expect them to do anything? They went over to explain their purpose of coming, but after hearing this, the red-haired man refused directly, saying that he was not interested in the position of the king's Shishibukai and asked us to find someone else. This guy really has no moral integrity. He talks about people and tells ghosts. In the Navy, there is no scruple at all, and they directly take out CP-0, the immediate boss, to accuse him. But when it comes to Maragio, Spangdan also spoke ill of the Navy headquarters to CP-0. Marshal Sengoku probably knew Spangdan's style, but he didn't say anything to embarrass Spangdan, but said with a smile, not interested in King Shishibukai. Ha ha ha. The reason why Sengoku, the naval marshal, chose red-haired Shanks as his target was not just because of his potential. On the contrary, this person was also studied carefully. This person seems to have no needs, but if you pay a little attention, you will find that he has been using Orgrim and the Warhammer pirates as his imaginary enemy. Perhaps because of this, Shanks rarely provokes other forces. Whenever he encounters their navy, he just chooses to run away without saying a word. I haven't seen him commit any particularly serious crimes at sea, arousing the hostility of the world government or anything like that. If such a premise exists, then both parties have a common goal, the 4 emperors of the New World. This is the basis of cooperation. But judging from the current situation, Sengoku, the Marshal of the Navy, has nothing to do against the 4 pirate emperors of the New World. Is there anything good that Shanks, the pirate, can do? In particular, he also set his target on Kazguro's Orgrim, one of the most powerful among the 4 emperors. Warring States is very sure that as long as he enters the New World, he will be good and obedient, but if he dares to fight Orgrim, he will be driven out of the New World. Because his strength is simply not enough. No matter which way you look at it, the 2 of them are not on the same level. Orgrim led the Warhammer pirates and was able to crush Shanks and the red-haired pirates in all aspects. The kind that crushes him so much that even the scum is left behind. Sengoku felt that maybe this was the reason why the red-haired pirates had been wandering around in the first half of the Grand Line for so long and never entered the New World, right? Because Shanks hasn't thought about how to face people like Orgrim yet. Since one person has little chance, should we use outside help? Isn't it a good method to use the Kabukai under the king? No matter whether it succeeds in the end or not, this is a method that can see hope. Trying it is better than sitting back and waiting for death, right? Therefore, the Warring States Marshal simply did not believe that Shanks would have no interest in this proposal. As long as he, Shanks, is unwilling to surrender to those 4 emperors, as long as he, Shanks, still wants to make a name for himself in the New World, he will be tempted by this kind of thing and this kind of cooperation. This refusal may be just an expression of attitude. By the way, it also looks at the sincerity of the world government and their naval headquarters. If they refuse just once, they will really change people, so it's no wonder Shanks refuses. Because you are so insincere. If this can be negotiated, then you may be sold out one day if you join the king's Shishibukai. You just said that he listened first and then refused. Didn't he act like he was in need of oil and salt from the very beginning? Marshal Warring States smiled and asked. Spangdan was a very thief, so he wiped himself clean when he opened his mouth. Marshal, what you said, I was not at the scene. It's not what those people from CP-0 said, how can I convey it, but I promise it's accurate to every word. That's what they said to me. Shanks listened first. This suggestion, and then suddenly turned against him, Spangdon quickly explained. He didn't kill or drive away all the people in CP-0 at the first time. On the contrary, he was willing to listen to what was going on. This was already expressing his thoughts and attitude in a subtle way, Shanks. But as cunning as Roger, the Warring States Marshal analyzed the news with news in his mouth. Spangdon was stunned for a moment, then frowned and said, Marshal, when you say this, it seems that this is really what happened. In other words, the red-haired man didn't really reject the invitation from King Shishibukai. But for sale. He obviously has no trust in us. Maybe he just wants to see our sincerity. As for selling it at a price, it's a bit too much, right? If that guy is smart, he can also see that not only does he need us, but we also need him. Indeed, there is no one in the sea who has more potential and qualifications than him, and is suitable to carry the banner of King Shishibukai. Come, as a real sharp knife, pierce into the so-called Four Emperors pattern, the Warring States Marshal said in a very calm tone. So, he is very smart. It's hard to control such a person. Marshal, do you really have no other suitable candidates in mind? Spangdon asked after thinking for a while. Warring States smiled very confidently and said it's better to be smart. This time, I'm not looking for idiots like Emoliana, but those who are truly prepared to cooperate. The smarter the person they cooperate with, the more qualified they are. If they really find an idiot, even if they are sent to the New World, it will only be for Orgrim and the others to have fun. You still need someone smart enough to be worthy of my plan. Marshal, you just need to know what you're doing, then how about I go there myself? Spangdon asked in a very casual manner. Marshal Warring States looked at this guy with a funny look, then shook his head and said no need, just let him go for a while, then I'll let Porisalino take a trip. General Porisalino? Spangdon murmured in surprise, and then asked, isn't this too grand? Ha 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 ha, Porisalino's character is just right. Doesn't Shanks want to see my sincerity? I just gave him my sincerity. The Admiral made the invitation in person, which can be regarded as giving him enough face, right? If he refuses this again, it really means that he really has no intention of joining the Seven Seas of the King, the Sengoku Grand Marshal said with a smile without hesitation. Spangdon also had a lot of thoughts in his heart. It seems that Sengoku, the new Marshal of the Navy, is really ambitious, both for the King's Shishibukai and for Shanks. He should be determined to win. In the past, the steel-framed Marshal of the Navy always sought stability in everything he did. Although the Warring States Marshal also had a calm demeanor in his work, his ideas were very novel. A motivated Marshal. The Navy may become more active and powerful under his leadership. CP-9 caught between these two parties, you have to cheer up. In short, you still have to help our Navy headquarters keep an eye on the red-haired pirates, and then implement this matter after we have finished handling the matters we need to deal with. Warring States smiled and said to Spangdon. Spangdon also had a flattering smile on his face and said, Marshal, don't worry, we won't do anything else, help keep an eye on people or something like that. Or no problem. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 433. Eternal Night Sea Avalon. In the kendo gym run by my hawk here. This kendo gym still doesn't have a serious name, and there isn't even a plaque hanging at the door. There were no disciples inside, only my hawk and undressed master and disciple. What's even more outrageous is that my hawk directly opened this kendo gym in the headquarters of the Warhammer Pirates. Therefore, outsiders simply don't know that my hawk, the world's greatest swordsman, has begun to preach and practice his profession. Just 2 days ago, my hawk asked Orgrim with a confused look on his face, why doesn't anyone come to my kendo gym to learn kendo? How the hell can someone come to learn kendo? If someone really weird comes in, Gangplank and Rengar will be criticized. That shows that the two of them have grossly neglected their duties. The head of the intelligence department and the boss of the black-robed picket actually let people sneak into the Warhammer Pirates station, and even signed up to learn my hawk's swordsmanship. Just kill yourself. Looking at my hawk's sincere expression, Orgrim finally couldn't bear to hit him. He only told him that the fragrance of wine is not afraid of the depth of the alley. As long as he teaches swordsmanship here, sooner or later someone will come to learn it. As for who this person is, alas, I hope that some big boss in the Warhammer Pirates will suddenly become interested in swordsmanship and go to my hawk to learn a few moves. My hawk didn't know if it was a real access or if it was intentional. In short, after getting Orgrim's clarification, he nodded in agreement and never raised these questions again. And it is still the same as before, no changes, quietly teaching and dressed kendo here. At this time, the two masters and apprentices were in the courtyard of the kendo hall. My hawk stood expressionlessly beside Andrest, staring at Andrest. And Andrest, the little guy, was holding a wooden sword in his hand and was constantly swinging the sword. Although he is young, he still wants to use this as an excuse to be free for a while. But after my hawk really pulled him out and started teaching him, Andrest never let my hawk down. Every day, morning, noon, and night, in 3 periods of time, swing the sword 5,000 times, adding up to 15,000 times. Add to that the rest of the training and it's completely overloading. If it were an ordinary 4 or 5-year-old child who followed this process, he would probably be tired enough to do splits, or even have some problems and leave hidden diseases. But Andreas inherited Orgrim's powerful physique. I am as tired as a dead dog today. If I have a good sleep at night, I will wake up feeling energetic. Therefore, my hawk showed no mercy to him. He would train him hard every day, and he could not stop until Andrest was beaten to the ground every day. During this period, even though Andrest complained about hardship and tiredness, he was able to persevere until the end and complete the various training programs assigned to him by Master My Hawk. In this process, My Hawk was sorting out his true knowledge of swordsmanship and starting from scratch. Not to mention, it seems that there are really some gains. Preaching, receiving karma, and clarifying doubts are not only for others, but also for yourself. During this period of practice, Andrest also underwent considerable changes. Originally, this little guy felt a little pampered. After all, when he was born, he stood at the top of this world, with a higher starting point than 99% of the people in the sea. His father is one of the most powerful men in the world. The Warhammer pirates under his command are the most powerful pirates in the world. Even the Whitebeard pirates are only 3 points behind Orgrim in terms of power. He was in Avalon, where the wind got the wind and the rain got the rain. It is the little highness of Avalon who is loved by everyone. That is to say, his father Orgrim doesn't like him very much, but who among the others would like him very much when they see him? The food and drink are almost all of the best quality. When he goes to the toilet at night, a little maid follows him to avoid bumping into him. Be carefree in the truest sense, eat well and sleep well. Therefore, he also looks fair and clean, without Orgrim's fierce temperament at all. On the contrary, he looks like a noble young master. Orgrim sometimes feels that this silly son has the potential to be a bit too much of a pretty boy, and always wants to deal with him. But after being pulled out by My Hawk and starting to practice swordsmanship, he finally realized the suffering in the world. Although the skin is still very fair, because there is no sunlight in Avalon, almost everyone who has stayed in Avalon for a long time will have white skin. Fortunately, plants unique to Avalon such as fluorescent grass can emit various elements that the human body needs during the day, so there is no need to worry about anything really going wrong. Although he still looks like a pretty boy, the young Andrest's temperament has changed a bit, and he has become more determined. His small body has become stronger, and you can even see strong muscles. He was shirtless and wearing a pair of shorts. He was soaked through and sweat was flowing all over his body. His arms were shaking slightly, but he was still swinging the sword non-stop. While swinging the sword, he also counted in his mouth. At this time, more than 4,700 knives had been wielded. When the 5,000 swords are used up, he can get half an hour's rest, and then he will have to do physical training. Push-ups and squats are all basic operations. My hawk has prepared many surprises for him. Woolen cloth. The two masters and apprentices stood in the courtyard teaching and practicing kendo. Under the eaves of the house in the courtyard, Orgrim, Beckman, and Plank were sitting here enjoying the cool air, drinking tea and chatting with each other. Recently, Orgrim likes to come here very much to watch Andrest's sword practice. Of course, don't get me wrong, Orgrim didn't come here because he was worried about his son or doting on him. In fact, although Orgrim valued Andrest very much, he always believed that a man should be cultivated from an early age and that Andrest should not be allowed to live too comfortably. The story of tiger father and dog son has happened too many times. What is the reason? He was just pampered, no other reason. But he, the son of Khazgarot Orgrim, cannot be treated like a waste. He is upright and upright, this boy should become a hero in this world. Otherwise, Orgrim would not be able to let him out of Avalon in the future. He did not want to lose his face like this. If this kid is really useless, Orgrim will open the trumpet without hesitation. But as of now, this kid doesn't feel squeamish and can still become a talent. It seems that the meaning of the name I gave him is still okay. Andrest, the brave and fighting noble wolf of the Khazgaros family. So, what is Orgrim doing here? It really chilled my son's heart to say that he, as a father, had come to see his son suffer. Not to mention, for some reason, every time I see Andrest being tortured by my hawk, he comes to the point of death. Orgrim was in a happy mood. Maybe it's because he knows very well that every torture will make his son stronger? Real or fake? Red hair? Is that Sengoku guy going to let go of the reins of King Shishibukai? Isn't he afraid of losing his temper? Orgrim said with some surprise while drinking tea. Because Plank just told him that according to the latest intelligence, after becoming the Marshal of the Navy, Sengoku proposed a proposal in Marijoya. He wanted to enhance the actual role of the King's Shishibukai and recruit qualified people into the King's Shishibukai. And the candidate he selected turned out to be the former crew member of the Roger Pirates, red-haired Shanks. If he has the guts to do it, he should be sure of it. To be honest, that guy from the Warring States period is quite powerful, whether it's skill, strength, or strategy. Shanks's words are not bad, but after all, he is young and doesn't have that. The old guy is so experienced, but I don't think he can play the Warring States period, Beckman spoke, holding a cup of tea in his hand. Then, without waiting for Orgrim and others to speak, Beckman smiled again and said, but even if you get away with it, what will happen? Do you really think that the Warring States period and the Navy headquarters will suffer any losses? Or maybe, can you tolerate 5 emperors coming out of the New World? Gee ha 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 ha, this is true, this guy from the Warring States period is really good at making conspiracies and tricks in this area, the wise General Warring States period, ha ha ha. Orgrim laughed and said. Yes, even if it is lost, what loss can the Navy headquarters have? It is nothing more than losing control of Shanks. But Orgrim and others are sitting. Can the position of the pirate emperor tolerate the rise of a new emperor and divide their interests in the new world? Impossible. There can only be 4 pirate emperors at most in the New World. This is a division from the beginning. Those who came out, Orgrim and Kaido, also tried hard to reduce this number, such as Charlotte Lingling. If Newgate hadn't come out, this damn old woman would have been mixed up on Butter Island. But still, it makes sense that it would be strange if Newgate didn't come out. In short, they can't tolerate the emergence of the 5th pirate emperor. Therefore, even if Sengoku loses control of Shanks, there will naturally be many people to help him. He took care of Shanks. In the end, who lost and who won was all due to the internal fighting among the pirates, and they would inevitably lose their strength. Sengoku, on the other hand, stood aside, eating melon seeds and watching the show, and didn't need to worry about anything. Naturally, there was no talk. What kind of loss? If you really want to talk about it, it is nothing more than the resources that secretly helped Shanks. But for the world government and the Navy headquarters, which are big businesses, can it be considered a problem? But this matter depends on Shanks's attitude. Do you think it is really possible for him to cooperate with the Navy as Roger's crew member? Plank smacked his lips and asked. In this world, as long as the benefits are big enough, nothing is impossible. Not to mention Roger's crew, even Roger himself has cooperated with the Navy. Didn't that cooperation even change the structure of the entire world? Orgrim smiled and said. Roger himself worked with the Navy. Glank was stunned for a moment, and then he seemed to remember something old. The Battle of God's Canyon. Although on the surface, the world government had raised the flag of Garp and never mentioned anything about Roger. Plank used to think so too, but as his status gets higher and higher, the truth of the world will gradually unfold in his eyes. Therefore, he now also knows these secret messages and intelligence. Yes, didn't Roger also cooperate with the Navy? Or his old enemy, Garp? That time, Roger changed the pattern of the world, defeated the Rocks pirates, and completely brought the New World into chaos. The heroes are fighting for hegemony. Only after that can newcomers like Roger have a chance to come forward. Before, the Rocks pirates swept across the New World. Who dared to take the lead? The current situation seems to be compared to that time. It's also very similar. But Rocks has become the 4 emperors. And Shanks, like Roger, may join forces with the Navy in order to change the New World, where the 4 emperors are sweeping everything. Fight for a way out. Thinking about it this way, it seems that guy Shanks really has the possibility to become the king of the Shishibukai. His captain can do it. Why can't he do it? This guy from the Warring States period, haha, maybe this move was aimed at us. He calculated correctly that Shanks just wanted to step on me to get the upper hand. After all, I and Shanks are at the same time, but I have always suppressed him. Due to the easing of the relationship between the world government and me, the Navy is restrained and cannot target me too much, so he plans to use the hands of pirates to cause me some trouble and hold me back. Right, Orgrim said with a smile. To weaken the enemy is to strengthen yourself. The development speed of the Warhammer pirates has always been obvious to all. Although Sengoku feels that the development of the Navy is not slow, he does not dare to underestimate Orgrim too much. Mew's ability. Therefore, he is ready to support Shanks, and he also has this consideration. Let Shanks be a troublemaker to disgust Orgrim, even if it can disrupt the development pace of the Warhammer pirates, it is considered there is a profit but not a loss. Moreover, he picked it very cleanly and would not leave anything for Orgrim to say. After all, their navy did not directly target the Warhammer pirates. It did not count as destroying the relationship between the Warhammer pirates and the world government. A verbal agreement between. You see, if you take 1 step and count 3 steps, isn't this a wise general? This guy has become a marshal, but he is much more difficult to deal with than the old Marshal Cyborg. Beckman said with a smile and shook his head. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 434. Although Orgrim is very interested in the relationship between Shanks and the Seven Warlords. But this is just a rumor for now. I don't know if the world government or the Navy has contacted Shanks. Did Shanks agree or refuse? In short, it is not in the newspapers now, which proves that these are all false. After casually chatting about this topic, a few people stopped discussing it. Speaking of which, it has been a while since Doflamingo took down Dressrosa. I wonder what happened to him there. Beckman touched his chin and asked. Huh? Didn't he tell you? Or didn't you read those documents? Orgrim asked a little strangely. Say what? What document? Beckman asked confusedly. He plans to use Dressrosa as a transfer station for Avalon and one of the downstream diversion islands. In the future, part of the arms business will be shipped directly from Dressrosa after the transaction is completed in Avalon. WEU's artificial devil fruit production line is also preparing to be transferred to Dressrosa. Orgrim said very casually. Gangplank asked directly, then doesn't this distract our interests in Avalon? There are so many benefits, how can one person eat them all? Doflamingo's contribution to our Warhammer pirates is obvious to all, and it is right for him to demand benefits, and this is not a loss of profits. In this regard, he knows what he wants, and the transfer of arms will be given to him. There is no need to make such a clear calculation. Anyway, they are all businesses under the Avalon Dark Group. As for these artificial devil fruits, Dressrosa has a race that is very good at planting and cultivating these. The small human race, if placed there, the efficiency will be improved a lot, and I have no reason to say no. Orgrim smiled and said. Don't say that. Doflamingo has done a good job. It is not excessive at all. It is within the rules and is reasonable. Even if Doflamingo is really with Orgrim, whatever favors and benefits Grim asks for, Orgrim will definitely give them to him without a second thought. There is no other reason than because Doflamingo is qualified. He, Orgrim, is not someone who likes to eat alone. Doflamingo has helped him a lot and earned him countless benefits. He will not treat Doflamingo badly just because of these small things. This is true. Glank didn't dwell on anything and nodded directly. Beckman said, I really don't know this. After all, most business matters are directly handed over to Doflamingo. Yes, he only needs to be responsible to you. I rarely read these materials and documents. After a short pause, Beckman continued, in other words, is he developing well in Dressrosa? It's quite good. It may become an extension of my Warhammer Pirates influence, and it can be used as a window to encroach on other territories in the New World. Orgrim nodded and said. This guy has always been good at doing these things, Beckman said with a smile. Gee, ha 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 ha, that's true, but after he's finished with Dressrosa, it's time to join forces with me to build the Dark Bank of Avalon. Orgrim said with a smile. Ha ha ha, we, the Warhammer Pirates, are really going to run towards the position of the richest man in the world, Plank also said with a somewhat emotional smile. Who would mind making too much money? When we decided to go out to sea together from behind to make things upside down, what was the reason? Isn't it just for the 29 million Baileys? Although we don't care about this mere 29 million belly now, we have tens of thousands of brothers under our command. If they dare to sell their lives to us, we can't let them suffer. The richer we are, the more money we have. The more powerful the talent becomes. You have to turn Bailey into strength. Orgrim grinned and said in a very confident tone. The richest man in the world, Tetsalo, will reach this position in the future. But his so-called richest man in the world is actually very false. He claims to control 100% of the world. 20 Baileys. This is indeed very powerful, but it is still just cash. Tetsalo's actual industry is not very big. It is just a golden city, known as the largest entertainment city, and it is gone. He mainly relies on ability. Only those who engage in finance and gambling can control huge cash flows. Cash can be king at certain times. But if the world government really wants to mess with him, it will be very easy, because the world government has extremely huge industries under its banner. In this world now, industry is the real king. And Tetsalo is just a big boss in the dark world. Of course, another weakness of his is that he is too weak to support his stable position. In the end he was blasted by the Straw Hat Pirates, and disappeared into the world like fireworks. Who is the richest man in the world? Isn't it the world government that will benefit in the end? Where did that huge amount of cash go in the end? I really thought that he could be a little girl was taken away. But Orgrim is different. His strength is strong enough to support him from falling easily. Moreover, he is very pragmatic and is engaged in industry. A bank looks like finance, but it is industry. The Walloon Dark Group is an industry, and the various projects invested by this behemoth are also industries. And Avalon and the 4 surrounding islands are even more industries. Although these industries cannot be compared with the world government, they will be truly transformed. As Orgrim's power, provide him with more subordinates, more troops, and a more powerful Warhammer pirates, tied to the interests of tens of thousands of Avalonians. Why can the world government cooperate with Orgrim? Grim eases the relationship. Because Orgrim can take out 250 billion belly in one go and sit on the throne with the world government. This is an economic strength that other pirate groups do not have. In terms of economy, Whitebeard the Great Philanthropist's pirate group ranks last among the 4 emperors, followed by Kaido. Before, Charlotte Lingling also had this capital. However, they were violently hammered by Orgrim and others on Butter Island. He is so hammered that he is no longer qualified. And he, Kazgarot Orgrim, the Warhammer pirates, is the only one among the Yonko pirates who can use Bailey to make the world government bow its head. The Warring States. Admiral, why are you trying every possible way to create obstacles for Orgrim? It's because he can also see that there are almost no shortcomings under Orgrim. He can fight, manage, make money, and stand firm. This is the truly terrifying enemy. While several people were chatting about these things and laughing from time to time, suddenly, a figure from the intelligence department broke in outside the courtyard of the Kendo Hall. As soon as he came in, he saw Orgrim and others, and then walked over quickly. Master Chui, Second Master and Minister, I have a piece of information that has something to do with us. I have sent it to you, the little brother said as he handed the intelligence information in his hand to Orgrim. Orgrim didn't shy away from anything. He took it directly and nodded to him. When the little brother saw his boss boss Lanke was also there, so he quickly retreated and left without talking nonsense. Orgrim opened the information and read it, and then there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Tiger, this guy is really, should we say that he is blessed with great fortune? You won't die even if you do this? Orgrim said with some surprise. What happens? Glank and Beckman asked curiously. Orgrim handed them the information in his hands and said, see for yourself, this guy is really stubborn and disbanded the Sun Pirates. Went to Imperial prison alone to rescue Eren, but was seriously injured by Magellan. In the end, the Revolutionary Army showed up, rescued him. This guy is really. Planck and Beckman quickly finished reading the information in their hands. The expressions of the 2 people were also very complicated. Tiger, this guy is indeed great and worthy of admiration, but his strength only goes so far. He might not even be as powerful as Jinbei. After all, Jinbei has been working as a guard in Ryago Castle, fighting pirates who come and go in and out of the New World and the Grand Line, and he has never given up on his growth in strength. As for Tiger, he was an adventurer in his early years, and was later captured as a slave, and then continued to organize the slave liberation movement. He was too busy, and his strength did not decline, so he was working hard. Just such a guy first burned Marijoa and then escaped with a large number of slaves. Then, he bumped into Porisalino on the island, and was able to escape from him alive. Now, after he recovered from his injuries, he went to Imperialton alone and robbed the prison there. This shit, he is really stubborn and not afraid of death. It turned out to be really lucky. He was seriously injured by Magellan's hammer, but he was still rescued by the Revolutionary Army. Could it be that after passing the hurdle of human blood, this guy's life began to become harder and harder? Orgrim doesn't even know how to evaluate him. In any case, Tiger is really loyal, and Aaron is not with the wrong person. Beckman shook his head and said. But if he does this, Aaron probably won't be able to get out in this life, Plank also said with emotion. Gee ha 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 ha, I don't think so. Orgrim laughed loudly and said. What's the meaning? Beckman looked at Orgrim and asked. You see, the Navy headquarters now intends to strengthen the King's Shishibukai. The Warring States period will definitely not let the Navy continue to mess around. Forget about the previous ones. After this, the King's Shishibukai will definitely choose some suitable candidates. The King's Kibukai will be pardoned, and this may be a chance for Aaron to be released from prison. Orgrim explained with a smile. You mean, is it possible that the Navy will let Tiger be the king in the Shishibukai? How can this be? Too whimsical. Beckman shook his head without hesitation. It is definitely impossible for Tiger. The world government will not let him enter the King's Shishibukai if he is killed. His nature is even more extreme than mine. But don't forget, there is Jinbe. Jinbe is no longer from Ryago Castle. Now, he is a pirate. In the past few years, as the influence, wealth, and strength of Fishman Island have become stronger and stronger, as one of the participating countries of the world government, it is impossible for the world government to ignore them as before. Yes, with the vision and skills of those 5 old men, they will definitely find ways to strengthen the relationship with Fishman Island, and even want to share the interests of Fishman Island. At this time, Jinbe is a good bridge. He is quite capable, he became a pirate, but he has not committed any serious crimes. Now that the Sun Pirates have been disbanded, he happens to have a good relationship with Neptune and Ryago Castle. Do you think the world government will not attracted to this candidate? Orgrim said with a smile. So don't we need to prepare anything? Should the world government be allowed to share the interests of the Fishman Island? Glank asked again. Beckman said perhaps the relationship will improve, but if you want to share the interests of Fishman Island, do you really think Neptune is an idiot? Do you think he trusts us more, or the world government? If the world government wants to intervene in this matter, it needs enough time to cultivate its relationship with Fishman Island. For Jinbe, it may be a start, but if it really develops like this, it is estimated that this will be a long-term arrangement. That's right, they won't pose a threat to us in a short period of time. As long as those 5 old guys can't solve the problem of the fishermen and mermaid slaves, there will be a rift between them and the Fishman Island. Orgrim also nodded and said. However, if Sengoku could realize this, he would definitely support Jinbe to become the king of the Shishibukai. Orgrim suddenly said. Beckman was stunned for a moment, then thought of something and said yes, he will support it. Once you are a thief, you will always be a thief. It is not that simple to come back ashore. Jinbe's identity as a pirate cannot be washed away in a short time. It is impossible for him to return to Ryago Castle and continue to be a civil servant. So where will he go in the future? As a powerful fighting force, there are 2 pirate groups that have good relations with Jinbe. The first one is the Whitebeard Pirates. The first one is his Warhammer Pirates. No matter where he goes, it is not good for the Navy. If it is really possible for Jinbe to be the king of the Shishibukai, Sengoku will definitely not object. Secondly, the Navy's control over Fishman Island is very weak. If there can be a king of the Shishibukai here, it has some effect. Fishman Island is the central island connecting the New World and the first half of the Grand Line. The Navy never has too much control over this place. No matter what, it can still do a good job in intelligence work. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 435. The first half of the Grand Route is in the sea area that is approaching the capital of Seven Waters. An ordinary merchant ship is sailing here. However, if you pay a little attention, you will find that there is a small black mark in the lower right corner of the flag hung by this merchant ship, which seems to be a bird, but it is relatively abstract. If you are someone who has not been exposed to the dark world, you may not be able to see anything at all. But anyone who knows something about the dark world will understand that this is a ship doing business in the dark world. Most merchants in the dark world will wear such a symbol on their flags to show their identity. As for whether the Navy and the world government will care? Generally not, because both the Navy and the world government have a lot to do with the dark world. The Navy often places bounties and inquires for information in the dark world. Moreover, everyone knows that this kind of business cannot be completely killed. Therefore, as long as these businessmen don't go too far, don't do anything too harmful to nature. Even if you mark your background on the flag, no righteous person will interfere with your business. After all, this is a different concept from being a pirate. But today, the ship is not carrying any cargo. But the big boss Orgrim. Since becoming the pirate emperor of the New World, Orgrim has also felt the pros and cons of this matter. Needless to say the benefits. The disadvantage is that he will be closely watched by all forces. The phone bugs he usually uses have to be encrypted several times. Fortunately, Plank and his intelligence department are now powerful. If they really change to the half-hearted way they used to be, they will really know. Any little move I make will be overinterpreted by those people. If they feel that the ingredients bought from a certain island are not delicious today, they will all think that Orgrim will destroy that island. Damn it, do you think I am Charlotte Lingling, that unreasonable old woman? Therefore, Orgrim rarely left Avalon since then. Because whenever he appears in a certain place with great fanfare, people in that sea area will probably have nightmares when they sleep at night, fearing that Orgrim will go crazy and destroy the place, or cause some big incident. But as a pirate, how can he not go to sea? Needless to say, Beckman was occasionally irritable, and Orgrim was even more ambitious. It's just that although he doesn't do much in the Warhammer Pirates, he doesn't want to cause more trouble to his subordinates, so he is embarrassed to run around when there is nothing serious. Most of them are fishing in the port. The same goes for that guy Doflamingo. We agreed to go fishing together. We have been dating for so long, but he has yet to fulfill his promise. This guy is becoming less and less trustworthy. As a businessman, I am really unqualified. Today, Orgrim was able to appear here, which gave him a good excuse to wander around. Avalon No. 1 Shipyard, Vincent, the eldest brother of the boss, Master Tom, who is known as the world's best shipbuilder. Orgrim had not seen him for many years. Roger had just died, and not long after the Great Pirate Age began, this guy was sentenced to death by the world government for building a ship for the Pirate King. At that time, Vincent couldn't sit still and almost didn't take Orgrim to make trouble. However, later Master Tom proposed the idea of a sea train. When the world government saw that this seemed to be very promising, it temporarily postponed his crime and asked him to continue to build and develop the sea train. If this technology can really be deployed, it can even offset his death penalty. Not to mention, nowadays, the world government really has no intention of killing Master Tom. In the original story, the reason why he died was because he was framed by Spangdam's stupid son Spondam. At that time, CP-9 wanted to find the design of Pluto and put this ancient weapons, contributed to the world government. But in this time and space, although Orgrim doesn't know whether they have taken any action in this regard. But actually, there isn't. Because of the change in Fisher Tiger's fate, the emergence of Orgrim, and Stussy's rebellion, the status of the CP agency has dropped much lower than in the original story. The 5 old stars feel annoyed just looking at them now. Therefore, many plans and other plans of the CP organization have also gone bankrupt. There is no way, the leader has been in a bad mood recently. Now they don't seek merit but seek no faults. After this period of risk has passed and the bosses above are angry, they can then consider how to make meritorious deeds and change their image. Therefore, no one from the CP agency is looking for Pluto's design. However, they are still concerned about Master Tom. After all, it is a project that the world government attaches great importance to at this time, and they need to keep an eye on the process to avoid any surprises and another big pot. And Orgrim secretly went to the capital of 7 Waters because of the news given by Vincent that his eldest brother Master Tom's sea train technology seemed to have been completed. Orgrim is also very optimistic about this technology. In the early years, he had planned to connect the entire Eternal Night Sea, and even all his territories in the future, with Avalon. This can greatly radiate the influence of the Warhammer pirates, and can also enhance the efficiency of operation and the circulation of materials. The speed of sea trains is several times, even dozens of times, that of ships. This means that if there is not enough time, for example, if you transport fruits with shelf life and freshness by ship, they cannot be sold very far. But if there is a sea train that is dozens of times faster, the nature will be different. The more sales you open, the greater your profits will be. If you want to be rich, build roads first. This is an eternal theorem. This thing is really convenient for you and me, and Orgrim has no reason not to do it. In addition, it was indeed a bit moldy after staying in Avalon recently, so Orgrim decided to take a trip himself. He even figured out a secret way to leave Avalon. This made Beckman and the others helpless, feeling that Orgrim was doing useless work. Don't look at what you are doing now, but when you get to the capital of 7 Waters, if you really take Master Tom away, do you think the world government can find out your whereabouts? Orgrim didn't have any idea about this, he just thought it was interesting, so it was exposed. Sometimes, he is quite playful. As for the eased relationship between the world government and him, it is not something that Master Tom can influence. Orgrim also made it very clear at the beginning that there will be changes if the interests are related. It has indeed been many years since Orgrim has been to the capital of 7 Waters. At this time, Orgrim stood on the deck and looked at the appearance of the capital of 7 Waters not far away, feeling a little surprised in his heart. Is this the capital of 7 Waters? Orgrim asked with a very emotional tone. It's the capital of the 7 Waters, Captain. Vincent nodded and said. When Orgrim came to the capital of 7 Waters, the capital of 7 Waters was so prosperous and was simply a star in the sea area. But now, the capital of 7 Waters has been ruined. It's in disgrace. The entire island, seen from a distance, is dirty and messy, and it feels like its prosperity has been lost. Alas, even though I already knew it since the beginning of the Great Pirate Age, the city of 7 Waters has been in decline. Most of the shipbuilding companies on the island have been affected by the wave of pirates and have closed down. That is to say, several large companies are supported by warship orders from the Navy headquarters. There is no real industry-wide collapse, but when I saw it with my own eyes, I realized how miserable it was here. Orgrim shook his head and said. With the advent of the Great Pirate Era, almost all islands will be affected. But the capital of 7 Waters is the hardest hit area because it is a shipbuilding holy land. Pirates also need ships, and if you want to survive the encirclement and interception of the Navy, the demand for ship quality is quite high. Therefore, after the advent of the Great Pirate Era, swarms of pirates swept the entire capital of the 7 Waters. But these people do not want to rob. Money is considered a sign of good character. Do you expect them to pay? This has led to a large number of shipyards being unable to make ends meet. Then, due to the problem of pirates entrenched, the communication between the surrounding islands and the Seven Rivers city has been greatly cut off. Therefore, the capital of Seven Waters was directly wiped out by this wave. It was not until later that Master Tom's sea train appeared. As a local of the capital of Seven Waters, the capital of Seven Waters naturally had priority in enjoying this benefit. It opened up connections with the surrounding islands, and the efficiency was several times faster. Then, the world government began to pay attention to this place again, and the Navy began to eliminate the pirate problem around it, greatly reducing the number of people in the Seven Waters capital. Potential safety risks. Subsequently, after more than 10 years of revival, the Seven Waters city was resurrected again. Such a dying island was brought back to life by the sea train. For a vibrant island like Avalon, not to mention its role, the ship quickly approached. At this time, many ports in the city of Seven Waters were abandoned, and naturally no one was there. Orgrim was not noticed even when he got off the ship. Master Tom, it is true that after so many years, he is still living on the Hulk Island. But at this time, there are a group of guys wearing black suits on the Hulk Island who look like they are not easy to mess with. He is a member of CP-9. The leader was the one who praised Sengoku Spangdine for his calligraphy not long ago at Marine Headquarters Marineford. He came here for several things, but the first thing, just came to see Master Tom. Even Orgrim knows that the sea train technology has matured and the world government has been keeping an eye on this matter. How can they not know? Out of the importance to Master Tom, of course the world government will come take care of it. The world government has always been rude to such technical talents. Although they do not intend to kill Master Tom, they are prepared to control Master Tom. It is similar in nature to Vegapunk, but without Vegapunk is just so exaggerated. After all, Tom is a shipbuilder. Naturally, Master Tom also noticed this, so he contacted his younger brother. Originally, Spangdine gave him the matter of Pluto. His son Spangdam came to do it in order to give his son some qualifications and show his face in front of the 5 old stars. But now, the CP agency is not doing well. Without Pluto, Spangdam will have nothing to do. He also knew what kind of character his son was. Wulaoxing had warned him about the sea train. Of course he would take it seriously. He was afraid that something might happen, so he came in person. Anyway, he happened to have other important things. Things are done here. The first sea train has been laid and the trial operation has been successful. It is the sea train connecting Judiciary Island. Therefore, the conclusion has been reached regarding the crime of Master Tom. At this time, Spangdin stood in Master Tom's dilapidated studio with a disgusted look on his face. But he still endured his discomfort, put a smile on his face, held a document of pardon of crimes in his hand, and said to Master Tom, "Mr. Tom, the effect of the sea train is very gratifying. The Justice and I have already experienced that, in view of your achievements in this area, the world government is particularly merciful and will pardon your previous death penalty." A smile appeared on Master Tom's face and he said, "That's okay. It's so good. I am also very happy for you. Our world government has always attached great importance to technical talents like you. Therefore, we plan to hire you to join the world government system." Spangdin grinned and said. Master Tom's originally happy expression paused for a moment and said, "I'm sorry, I like to be more free. I think I can. This matter is non-negotiable. I'm not here to discuss it with you. I don't want you to feel it. I want me to feel that I am here to convey an appointment." From now on, in this regard, Spangdin spoke very decisively. There was no room for Master Tom to retort. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 436. Master Tom looked slightly ugly when he heard this. Going to serve in the world government sounds nice, but in reality, isn't it just to take care of him? Can I still be a free shipwright? But at this time, he seemed unable to resist anything. He is a shipwright, even if he is the best shipwright in the world, he still has no power to resist in front of the world government. Spangden seemed to have a chance to win, with a confident smile on his lips. However, at this moment, a powerful aura instantly enveloped the place, and then, the few boys in black suits who followed Spangden, both looking and seeing nothing, were all frightened by this aura. His eyes immediately turned white and he fainted. Although Spangden felt the momentum, it didn't seem to be directed at him, so it had no impact on him. But I also realized what it was. Overlord color. Spangden became nervous instantly and pulled out the musket from his waist. Master Tom's face lit up. He had asked his brother Vincent for help before. And Vincent also told himself that the boss of Orgrim was very interested in the sea train technology in his hands and would help him. Now, is the boss here? Ha ha ha, if Master Tom is not willing to go, why bother forcing others to do so? Why don't you give me some face? Our red-haired pirates still lack a powerful shipwright. A hearty laugh came from outside the door. Master Tom's expression was a little surprised. Huh? Not the one I rocked? Red hair? Ah, it's Shanks. I heard that the trainee on Roger's ship has now become a well-known man. That's right, the person coming is none other than red-haired Shanks. There was a hint of surprise on Spangden's face, but it wasn't very strong, just a little confused. He seemed to have known that Shanks would appear in the capital of Seven Waters, but Shanks would interfere in their affairs here, which puzzled him. Indeed, Tom, the shipwright, is related to your Roger pirates. But I haven't seen you meddling in my own business for so many years, so why are you here today? Red hair. Spangden frowned slightly. As the commander of CP-9, despite his usually slick appearance, he could still be tough when it was time to be tough. As soon as he finished speaking, Shanks' figure opened the door and walked in. He still looked a bit bohemian, wearing a straw hat, a captain's coat, the famous sword griffin hanging around his waist, and a pair of straw sandals and flip-flops. He had an unkempt beard and hairy legs, making him look very slovenly and not domineering at all. But his eyes were full of oppression, and there was a cross hanging on his neck. This cross was exactly what Orgrim wanted from Mihawk to give to Shanks. Shanks originally planned to throw it away, but he felt that it might be able to motivate him, so he finally kept it in his hands, waiting for one day in the future, when he defeated Orgrim, to return this thing to him. Why are you here? As agreed, General Porisalino, Spangden frowned and asked. But before he finished speaking, Shanks ignored him and waved to Master Tom with a smile. Mr. Tom, I haven't seen you in many years. How are you? Tom also smiled. He opened his mouth and said so. It was a coincidence that Shanks appeared at such a time. He was on the Queen of Spring Island before. After the Warring States Marshal left him alone for a while, he sent someone to contact him again. The two parties then agreed that Admiral Porisalino of the Navy headquarters would personally come forward to discuss matters with him about the Shishibukai. And this venue is set in the capital of the Seven Waters, which is not too far from the Queen of Spring Island. Shanks also came here. After he came, he saw things and missed people, and he thought of Master Tom. Over the years, no one from the Roger Pirates has come to see Tom, and the same goes for Shanks. It's not that they're mean and ungrateful. The main crime of Master Tom is to collude with the Roger Pirates and build ships for the Roger Pirates. They had gone their separate ways before, avoiding the arrests of the Navy headquarters. When something happened to Master Tom, they were so busy with themselves that they couldn't take care of anything, so how could they take care of things here? Fortunately, Master Tom was powerful enough to use his skills to save his life. During this period, if they come to Master Tom again, they will not come to protect him, but to harm him. He managed to save his life, but when the Roger pirates come, won't you just take out his crimes and beat him to death again? So over the years, no one from the Roger pirates came to see Tom. Tom himself understood the twists and turns, so he never blamed anything. But things are different now. Shanks feels that he is going to become the king's Shishibukai, so he can be pardoned with the privileges of the king's Shishibukai. As long as Master Tom becomes his own shipwright, if the world government is still prepared to make him the king of the Shishibukai, it will pardon Master Tom. I didn't have the ability to control Tom before, but now I have this ability. Shanks is also a kind guy, how could he turn a blind eye? So after coming to the Seven Waters capital, he did not go to see Porisalano immediately. Instead, he came here and happened to catch Spangdon robbing people here. He intervened without saying a word. After chatting with Master Tom for a few words, Shanks formally looked at Spangdon and said, "Although I don't know who you are, since you know that I have an appointment with Porisalano, you should understand, what are we going to talk about this time? Well, my presence here should probably let you know that I am still very interested in this cooperation. It is very likely that I will become the new King Shishibukai. In this case, as the king of the Shishibukai, do I have the right to ask the world government to grant amnesty to Mr. Tom?" Spandane's heart was complicated. This matter is something that the world government is paying attention to. But Spangdon also knew the importance of Shanks very well. Didn't he directly send the general to talk to him without looking at Sengoku, the new marshal of the navy? Now the Warring States Marshal is a popular man on the Wulaoxing side. If he offends Shanks here, if this guy no longer serves as the king of the Shishibukai, wouldn't it mean that he has messed up the navy's affairs? At that time, if the Generalissimo of the Warring States period comes to settle accounts with him, he will not end up well. He can't afford to offend both sides. You are right, but you are not the king of the Shishibukai yet. According to the rules, Spangdine could only be tougher, delay for some time, and think about countermeasures. I don't know if this guy is really unlucky, but this time, he still didn't finish his words. Another powerful momentum came overwhelmingly from outside. This time, Spangdine was so shocked that cold sweat broke out all over his body. However, he discovered that this momentum was still not directed at him, but at the red-haired Shanks. Sure enough, Shanks's expression suddenly changed, from relaxed to serious. His palms involuntarily rested on the famous sword griffin at his waist. "Gee ha 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 ha, you have become a lot stronger. I didn't expect to meet you here. Your Majesty Kaiwahe? It seems that you are really ready to collude with the world government? For what? For me?" A rebellious, very domineering and arrogant voice came in from outside the door. Before anyone arrived, everyone in the room already understood who was coming. This voice was too familiar, the devil in Rogtown the voice. Shanks may be considered a big shot here, but compared with that guy, he seems much smaller. When he met Shanks, Spangdon was still tough, because he knew that Shanks, since Kess appears here, it means that he intends to cooperate with the world government, so he should not do anything to him. But the owner of this voice made him frightened. Because if that guy kills him, he will kill him. Like a chicken, there will be no consequences at all. Even if he is the commander of CP-9 and a senior official of the world government, no one will give in. Because the owner of this voice is the strongest person in the world. Hosgarot Orgrim, known as the King of the Night. Just listening to this voice almost made Spangdon pee. Orgrim, Shanks responded with a look of helplessness in his eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, the door of the room was kicked open, and then Orgrim walked in, but he reacted and said with a slightly embarrassed face, "Master Tom, sorry, I forgot that this is your territory. I will have the door repaired for you later." After finishing speaking, Orgrim turned his head and glanced at Spangdine, and actually recognized him. When Spangdine noticed Orgrim looking at him, his legs were shaking a little and his face turned pale, fearing that Orgrim would take out a hammer and blow his head off. That's really no place to complain even if you die. Hey, did you understand what I just said? Orgrim grinned and asked Spangdine with a very evil smile. Spangdine just came back to his senses, his mind was spinning very fast, and he quickly said, I understand completely. I promise to fix the door. Orgrim. Ha 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 ha, Master Tom also laughed. Brother. Vincent walked out from behind Orgrim and hugged Tom excitedly. At the same time, Orgrim also looked at Shanks and said, although I have heard of it before, but you guys, are you really ready to become the king of the Shishibukai? This is not a good name. Shanks was not afraid of Orgrim, and said somewhat unhappily, you don't have to worry about what I want to do, right? As for the name, what name does the pirate want? Is it related to the world government, complicity? You, the pirate emperor, can do it, why can't I do it? Gee ha 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 ha, it seems that I have put a lot of pressure on you. Orgrim laughed and said. Shanks snorted coldly, but did not refute anything. There is no need to be harsh here. Shanks does not regard Orgrim as a fool, and he has never concealed that he treats him as a fool. As an imaginary enemy. Long before O'Hara, when the two met, Orgrim understood his thoughts. Therefore, there is indeed a lot of pressure on him to become the king's Shishibukai. Orgrim, there is no need to deny this. What are you doing here? Shanks asked impatiently. Orgrim didn't care about this bastard's attitude. He was used to it, and he had no intention of killing Shanks here. There was nothing to avoid. Orgrim, he said directly, what are you doing here? Do you still need to ask? I heard that someone wants to bully my Vincent's eldest brother. Doesn't this have a problem with my Warhammer pirates? As the captain, I'm here to see for myself. Is there any problem? Come on, who wants to have a problem with our Master Tom? Stand up and let me hear it. Orgrim said in a very domineering tone, but looked at Spangdine, who was aside. Spangdine was feeling very uncomfortable now. If this man hadn't left him to repair the door, maybe he would have done it now. Already dead? This, Mr. Hammer, you misunderstood. Our world government wants to hire Master Tom with a high salary to become a senior technical staff of our world government. We are very sincere, Spangdine quickly explained. Gee ha 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 ha, so that's what happened. Then you don't have to worry about it with the world government. Master Tom has already signed a contract with me, and he wants to go back to the new world with me. This matter is settled like this. Anyone has any opinions? Hold it in for me, you are not qualified to negotiate terms with me. If you have any ideas, go back and ask Willaoxing to tell me in person. Orgrim reached out and patted Spangdine on the shoulder, and said with a laugh. Although he had a smile on his face, Spangdine felt terrible. He did not dare to refute the big man's words. It's so uncomfortable. What happened to the capital of the Seven Waters? Why is the pirate emperor of the New World here? Are all the people who do intelligence work useless? Huh? No, I'm just doing intelligence work. Please give me a monthly ticket for flowers, bosses. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 437. This, Mr. Chui, you have a lot of money, don't embarrass a little person like me here, right? Mr. Tom, he is still a serious criminal in our world government, Spangdine said somewhat incoherently. Orgrim didn't talk nonsense to him. He snatched the document from his hand, opened it and looked at it and said, what serious criminal? Isn't this a document amnesty for crimes? He is not guilty now. Not to mention, even if he is a serious criminal, so what? I'm a pirate, but I'm still being held hostage by billions by your world government. Come on, why don't you catch me? Spangdane feels very sad. Shanks came up here and tried to reason with you, about the identity of His Majesty the Shishibukai. But Orgrim, the big boss, is too domineering in his style. Let me be reasonable with you. As for arresting him, if I had this ability, would I still be pretending to be a grandson here? Just when Spangdine was neither advancing nor retreating. A slightly obscene voice also came in from outside the door. Oh, yeah, I told you that we had an appointment to meet, but why didn't I see anyone? So are you pirates meeting here? The tall but slender figure of Porisalino appeared outside the door, looked inside, and said lewdly. General, when Spangdane saw Porisalino, it was like seeing his biological father. He was so excited that he almost cried. Did you see it? Did you see it? I, Spangdane, also have someone on top. The Admiral of our Navy, Porisalino is here, don't go too far. At this moment, Spangdane has completely abandoned his position as CP-9, and he can't wait to put on the Navy uniform and become a messenger of justice. Whispering sound, Orgrim smacked his lips in displeasure, and then muttered, "Here comes a troublesome guy." Shanks also smiled and said, "Where can we talk, not talk? It's okay here, too." Sure enough, pirates are all dishonest people, Porisalino complained casually. Then, he looked at Orgrim with some curiosity and said, "This really surprises me. Why would a big shot like you come to the capital of Seven Waters? Where am I going and reporting to your navy? How? Do you feel that you are inflated now that you have become a general? Do you want to fight with me?" Orgrim said with a sinister smile on his lips. To be honest, he was quite interested in Porisalino's current strength. He also wanted to see this new generation of admiral in the navy, who is known as the world government's top fighter. How many people with strong strength have made progress? Porisalino is used to being an old man, and he has the ability to do what he says. Faced with Orgrim's provocation, he directly chose to give in and said something weird. He curled his lips and said, "Now our Navy headquarters doesn't dare to provoke a big shot like you. I have been given orders from above, and I am very helpless." At this time, Sponda said in a low voice, "General, it's like this red-haired Shanks and that, they are all here to take away Mr. Tom." Porisalino frowned a little. "Does this have anything to do with my navy? Just take it away." He doesn't intend to care about this matter. It's not their navy's mission anyway. The world government will be treated as an afterthought. When it comes to settling accounts, it's not their navy's fault. It's your CP organization that didn't handle the matter well. Porisalino came here just for Shanks. As for him not caring about these things, Spangdane, will it be embarrassing? Does that have anything to do with him, Porisalino? Even if Spangdane feels uncomfortable, he still has to hold it in. This is the way the world is. You can take revenge on Orgrim, or you can take revenge on me, Porisalino. Do you really think that I, the Admiral, am a clay sculpture? Therefore, Porisalino did not answer the call at all. Instead, he looked at Shanks and said, "Red hair, do you want to change places? This may not be very convenient although." Shanks said where he was, they talked about it, but at this time he also felt that it was not suitable here. After all, the bastard Orgrim is here. When he talks to the Navy about the Shishibukai, it will inevitably involve the cooperation of both parties. What to collaborate on? Why not cooperate with Orgrim and the other pirate emperors? Talking about this in front of them not only means a slap in the face, but also seems very retarded. So Shanks was ready to agree. As for Master Tom's matter, since Orgrim had intervened, he couldn't change anything. Judging from what Master Tom meant, it seemed that he had indeed reached an agreement with Orgrim. "Anyway, I am here to help. Since Master Tom has his own choice, I should respect him. But if Tom were to choose, he would probably only choose Orgrim. It's not that Shanks is bad, it's mainly that Shanks doesn't have the ability to support his ideals. The Orgrim family has a big business, and they have a foundation in their hands, which allows Tom to use his talents to build a sea train or something. But what about Shanks? A ship doesn't even have a fixed territory. If you leave with him, what else will you do with the sea train? Connect the ship with a train? Isn't that a disease? So Shanks said hello to Master Tom, then looked at Orgrim and said, "See you in the new world." "Gee ha 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 ha, I'm waiting for you, the king is under the Kaiwahe." Orgrim laughed loudly. Then, he looked at Porisalino again, with a cruel smile in his eyes, and said, "Polusalino, are you really not going to do anything?" Polusalino's face twitched. To be honest, he felt that he was now an admiral, and his strength has also developed in an all-round way over the years. But if he really wants to fight against a ruthless person like Orgrim, the odds of winning are still slim. Especially now that the weather is getting faster, it's dark, this guy is going crazy, and no one can cure him. And this time, my mission is to talk to Shanks about the Shichibukai. Why bother with Orgrim when you have nothing to do? No overtime pay. Next time, definitely next time, Porisalino said with a smile and waved his hand, as if an old friend refused the invitation. It's really boring. Orgrim curled his lips and said. Then, Porisalino stopped waiting here, turned around and left first. Shanks glanced at Orgrim again, nodded to him, and followed him out. This guy Spangdine was taking steps, preparing to keep up with his general, but before he could take 2 steps, Orgrim said, "Who is that? I asked you to repair the door. Do you think I am, are you farting? If the door cannot be repaired today, I will make you into a door and hang it here." Spandine's face turned bitter, and he looked at Porisalino with a look of help. Porisalino was a bachelor and had no intention of meddling in other people's business. He said, "Spandine, Orgrim is also a respectable person and will not do anything to you. Please fix the door properly." After saying that, he ignored Spangdane and left directly. Spangdane felt very sad and could only go to repair the door. The 4 emperors met with the admiral of the navy and even the future king Shichibukai in together. No fierce battle broke out, not even a spark. The 2 sides dispersed after a few words. Sometimes, the world is so strange, justice. Evil. Ha ha ha. At this time, Orgrim smiled and said to Master Tom, "Master Tom, Vincent has already told me about the situation. I remember the fact that you built a ship for me back then. Sea train, I am also very interested in technology. You are very welcome to the new world Eternal Night Sea. Once there, whether it is a shipyard or a sea train, I can invest in it so that you can realize your ideals." Master Tom, he also laughed, unable to stay in the 7 Waters city any longer. Orgrim couldn't possibly protect him here for the rest of his life, even if that guy Spangdine went to repair the door now, but if he refused to leave with Orgrim. Once Orgrim leaves, he will wait to become a technician within the world government. It is still impossible to get along in the 7 Waters capital. As for going to the world government, how could he be as comfortable as going to Orgrim? After all, he had no acquaintances with the world government, and he was still a fishman. As for Orgrim, there was some connection between the 2 parties. His own younger brother was the core cotter around Orgrim. Although he is not a combatant, he is in charge of several large shipyards in Avalon and is also a big boss. Once you go there, with Vincent taking care of you, do you have anything to worry about? The Warhammer pirates are now wealthy and are not afraid of investment, but are afraid of not having good projects. If he goes there, Orgrim will not be stingy with Bailey. What a great opportunity to flex your muscles. Only some, unfortunately, I just can't help in the capital of 7 Waters. However, Master Tom agreed to Orgrim's invitation without hesitation. Then, Vincent sat here and boasted to Tom about the benefits of Avalon. Orgrim also chatted and spanked with them here. Spangdine was working very hard on the side repairing the door, making a little noise, and even being glared at by Orgrim a few times, which scared his little heart. Just when a few people were chatting happily, the phone bug Orgrim was carrying rang. Orgrim frowned slightly, took it out and saw, "Come on, it's those 5 bad old men again." It seems that since the business cooperation with Frevans, these 5 old guys no longer have any scruples about face. As long as there is something that is too big for the Warhammer pirates, they may personally call and ask Og. Rem. It was as if he, Orgrim, was going to cause trouble, which annoyed Orgrim. He tried to block the phone bug signals of these 5 old men several times. Spandine is repairing the gate here, so he will definitely not be able to contact Wulaoxing. Don't think too much about it, it must have been that bastard Porisalino who did it. If he appears here, Porisalino will report the situation, which is reasonable. Shaking his head helplessly, Orgrim answered the phone and asked, "What happened again? What happened again? What are you doing? Don't you have any idea?" The 5 old stars felt helpless. However, Orgrim has indeed been very stable since his cooperation with Frevans. Even in the arms business, both parties have become closer. Therefore, the 5 old stars no longer always suspected Orgrim of conspiracy or anything like before. But I still can't bear to care about him all the time. "Orgrim, are you in the capital of 7 Waters?" Wulaoxing asked directly. "Do you still need to confirm with me? Didn't Porisalino meet me just now?" Orgrim complained. "You guy, isn't the new world big enough? What are you running around for?" Wulaoxing complained with some displeasure. "I said you 5, right? Alas, I am a young man, unlike the 5 of you who are too lazy to move and stay in Maragio all day long. What's more, I am a pirate. Isn't it reasonable for me to go outside for a walk?" Orgrim explained patiently. "Anyway, you want to get involved in Tom's affairs, right? The importance of sea train technology to our world government is self-evident. You are a smart person and you should also be able to see how valuable this thing is. Is there any discussion?" Wulaoxing asked directly. "I came here in person, which proved that I also attach great importance to this technology," Orgrim said casually. The 5 old stars fell silent, as if they were thinking about countermeasures. Orgrim paused and continued, "But it's not beyond negotiation. Orgrim is very aware of the importance of the sea train to the world government. This is a kind of political, military, and economic technologies that increase impact and efficiency. The world government will not give up easily, or even say that they will not give up at all. Orgrim doesn't intend to break up with the 5 old stars, so within the appropriate scope, he is willing to discuss with these 5 old guys." "You say," Wulaoxing said without hesitation. "The old rules, let's cooperate. Regarding the matter of free fans, both of us have accumulated some trust. Don't say that you don't have any chess pieces in the dark world. Ask your people in the dark world to come out to Avalon and take the lead with me. We will form a sea train company to operate this project together." Orgrim thought for a while and then said, "Okay, how to divide the shares?" "Our world government will account for 60%, Wulaoxing said directly. Orgrim refused without hesitation. "Impossible, Mr. Tom is in my hands now, and the technology is also in my hands. I, Avalon, am not short of money, so don't go too far." "Yes, 60%. Even if I want to take it, I, Avalon, will take 60%. The result was good. As soon as Orgrim finished speaking, Wulaoxing said directly and decisively, "Deal, you 6 and I 4. Orgrim was stunned for a moment. Damn, have I been tricked? These 5 old foxes. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 438. Although I feel like I was tricked by these 5 old guys. But Orgrim didn't intend to talk back. After all, the sea train business really needs to cooperate with the world government. Even if the 5 old stars don't call the phone bugs to inquire, Orgrim will take the initiative to contact them later. Orgrim himself does this business, and at most he does it in the New World, in the Sea of Eternal Night. The cake is so big. But if we get the world government to work together, we can spread the cake all over the world. There is no doubt that the bigger the cake, the greater the profit. Even if you have to give out 40% of the profit, it will be more profitable. As for the world government, perhaps they care more about profit than profit, so they did not hesitate to choose a 4-6 division with Orgrim. What they care more about is the cross-generational innovation brought by sea train technology. Can effectively strengthen their influence on the countries under the world government. This is true whether it is politics, economics, or military. Orgrim doesn't care about this. There are gains and losses. We can't always cooperate. The advantage is Orgrim has eaten everything, and the world government has also suffered. The 5 old stars are not fools. It's so cool if we can cooperate. After temporarily finalizing the general direction of this matter, Orgrim was ready to hang up the phone bug. But at this moment, Wulaoxing suddenly said, as you said, we have a certain relationship of trust. How about we pick a more convenient place to talk again? Orgrim heard this. His brows wrinkled slightly, but a smile soon appeared on the corner of his mouth. He turned to look at Vincent and Master Tom, nodded to them, then stood up and walked out of the house. Not long after, Orgrim came to the coast of Hulk Island and found a broken ship. He didn't pay much attention to it. He just sat on it and said, let's talk about it. Before you became the pirate emperor of the New World, we all agreed that you were an evil, crazy, and unreasonable pirate who even wanted to destroy the world and the world government. The 5 old stars spoke softly first. Orgrim smiled, but did not answer. Sure enough, after these words fell, the 5 old stars continued, but now we don't think so. Maybe there were some misunderstandings between us before. This should be the reason why our communication and understanding were not in place. Now, as our relationship has eased and we have had more contact with you, our thoughts and views on you have also changed. You are still an evil and crazy guy, but you are not an unreasonable person. Maybe you are civilized, the name of the destroyer is there, but you are not a person who is particularly keen on destruction. On the contrary, judging from Avalon, the Evernight Sea, and what you have done in the New World, you seem to be more interested in destruction than in destruction. Are you passionate about construction? Gee, ha 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 ha, maybe. Orgrim said with a smile. Orgrim, we have been researching your purpose and thoughts for a while, and now we may be able to see some signs. It seems that you want to become the dark side of the world. Dark side? Wulaoxing asked. Is there anything wrong? Orgrim raised his eyebrows without explaining anything. No, at the level of you and me, there is no need to talk about the banners of justice and evil. This world cannot be divided simply by justice and evil. If there is such a division, it should be order and chaos. There is no doubt that our world government represents the greatest order in the world, and you pirates represent chaos, but you and I should both know that order and chaos are one, and no one can leave them. No matter who we are, at least in this era and in the next few hundred years, we can't see any changes at this level, Wulaoxing said again. You're right, Orgrim responded with approval this time. We are thinking that if you and I can continue to maintain this state of fighting without breaking up, and can cooperate tacitly to a certain extent, then it seems that it is not impossible for you to become the darkness of the world. This will be beneficial to us. Of Wulaoxing said. Gee, ha 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 ha, don't use the word let, I earned all this by myself. Orgrim laughed loudly, and his tone was a bit unruly. The 5 old stars were silent for a while, but they did not argue with Orgrim on this issue. In short, the two of us may be able to launch some new cooperation, at a deeper level. Wulaoxing continued. He, come and listen. Orgrim smiled and said. Revolutionary Army, what do you think of them? The 5 old stars asked directly. Orgrim grinned. Sure enough, these 5 old guys are waiting for me here. The Revolutionary Army is pretty good, isn't it? Compared with you, I think they represent the truth, goodness, and beauty of the world more. Orgrim said carelessly. The 5 old stars also smiled and said, you are right. Compared with us, they represent the truth, goodness, and beauty of this world more. Wulaoxing's words are tantamount to admitting that the world government is inferior to the Revolutionary Army in this regard. If it really spreads, it will definitely cause an uproar. But it's a pity that Orgrim won't say anything more, and it's even less likely that the 5 old stars will abandon their martial arts. However, this kind of truth, goodness, and beauty doesn't seem to be a good thing for people like you, right? At least you can cooperate with us. Can you get along with the Revolutionary Army? Wulaoxing asked softly. Orgrim raised his eyebrows slightly and said, not to mention, that guy Darag has wanted to talk to me about cooperation several times. We are from the New World. Arms business, the second largest buyer, guess who? Hearing Orgrim's words, the 5 old stars felt very sad. Are you guessing? Can we not know? And can you please stop talking about these superficial things? Don't look at Darag now, as he seems to be begging you. Wait until he really takes over and see if he can take care of you. Orgrim naturally understands this truth. He can cooperate with the world government unscrupulously, make money, do business, and do evil but shady things together. It's because he knows that world government is not a good thing, and he has the ability to accept it and the so-called tolerance. As long as the benefits are in place, the world government doesn't mind cooperating with pirates at all. But the Revolutionary Army is different. When these guys come to power and crush the world government, the next ones they have to deal with will definitely be pirates. Cooperation is impossible. A new political organization is the most glorious moment of truth, goodness, and beauty. There is no room for darkness in their eyes. He will try his best to sweep away the darkness, especially the dark boss like Orgrim. Perhaps after the Revolutionary Army has been in power for dozens or hundreds of years, groups of older generations with noble sentiments will disappear. Only those who grow up in power will begin to degenerate, and will they be tolerant of their darkness, right? This is the reincarnation of a dynasty. As the saying goes, the dragon slayer eventually becomes the evil dragon. This is the truth, but this has nothing to do with Orgrim. Don't look at it now as if he is selling arms to the Revolutionary Army and supporting them in their revolution. But this is the same as the world government training Shanks to be the king of the Shichibukai, and it is used to create obstacles for the other party. If Orgrim were to vote on who would be the leader, Orgrim would definitely support the world government with both hands and feet. Support. That is to say, the size of the Revolutionary Army is just that, and it cannot compete head-on with the world government. That's why Orgrim secretly gave them some support. When the situation begins to change, Orgrim may work with the world government to kill the Revolutionary Army. This world is still corrupt and degenerate, which is more in line with his interests as a pirate. What do you want that is true, good, and beautiful? Okay, there's no need to explain anything. I understand everything. What do you want to say? Could it be that you want to cooperate with me and eradicate the Revolutionary Army together? Orgrim asked with a smile. You can set the price. The 5 old stars suddenly said this. Orgrim was stunned for a moment. Did he not expect that these 5 hometowns were so determined? But Orgrim was not moved. He could still distinguish the importance of revolution. It is necessary for the army to exist now. Without the Revolutionary Army, the world government will have no fundamental enemy. Just as they do not believe in Orgrim's integrity, Orgrim does not believe in their integrity. The Revolutionary Army may not be after being dealt with, these 5 old guys will fall out with themselves. Thought, this thing is very scary. Maybe in the future, Orgrim will join forces with the world government to kill the Revolutionary Army. But there think, it will surely bear fruit and exist for a long time. This is poison. As long as this poison exists, the world government will never be able to focus all its energy on destroying pirates like Orgrim. This is in line with Orgrim's core interests. So Orgrim shook his head and said to the phone bug, there is no need to talk about this matter for now. There are so many pirate problems in my new world that have not been solved. How can I have the leisure to study it with your world government? How to deal with the Revolutionary Army? The 5 old stars felt a little regretful after receiving Orgrim's answer. However, some interesting attitudes are also revealed here. Orgrim still sees it very clearly. No need to talk about it for now. In other words, there will still be time to talk in the future. This bastard is waiting for the situation to get worse. Although he hates it with all his teeth, he has to say that this is indeed in line with his interests as a pirate, and the 5 old stars can't do anything to him. Well, let's talk about it later, but Orgrim, it's better for both of us to get closer and closer, Wolaoxing said with a smile, as if he didn't care about Orgrim's rejection. Orgrim also pretended to be very close and said, of course, we are partners. The 5 old stars were disgusted by him, but still asked, I heard that you and Doflamingo are going to create a dark bank. Gee, ha 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 ha, do you want to take part in this? But forget it, this involves my core interests of Avalon, and I am not prepared to use them to cooperate with you. Orgrim laughed loudly and said. Banks are not that easy to deal with, Wolaoxing smiled and said. Of course I know this, so I don't need to bother you. Of course, I don't want you to cause trouble for me, so I will explain to you that Avalon Dark Bank, just like its name, is rooted in the dark world. I don't have the ability to involve the financial system within your world government, so let's not hold each other back. Orgrim said in a very calm tone. The world government has its own financial system. When society develops to a certain level, this system is naturally born. Banks are also opened by the world government. The world's largest financial institution is in the hands of the world government, and the currency issued on the market is endorsed by the world government. This monetary system has been maintained for more than 800 years. It is very stable and there is no particularly big problem. Loopholes. Orgrim can't handle this, so he can only fiddle with it in the dark world. After all, can he, a pirate, issue new currency? 99% of the people in the sea will not recognize it. Okay. In the dark world, due to all the chaos before, there are many mountains, and there is no one big boss who can really dominate the crowd, so the financial system is very chaotic. All transactions are in cash. One hand pays the money, and the other hand pays the money. But in fact, this is very inconvenient. The world government naturally has their bank. Otherwise, if it pays military expenditures to the Navy every year, it can't transport Bailey ship by ship, right? That's not 120 million, so take it can be packed in a box. During the war, the Navy recruited more than 100,000 officers above the school level. It is conceivable how much military strength they have around the world. Alabasta it can explode more than 1 million troops, and the Navy can easily reach tens of millions. According to this process, if there is not a large enough financial institution to operate, the world government will be exhausted just by paying wages. The financial system that Orgrim wants to create in the dark world is actually similar to the world government. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 439. The 5 old stars probably also understand what Orgrim means. It can be seen from Avalon that this guy wants to shroud the entire dark world under his influence. Now we are going to build the Avalon Dark Bank. Judging from the name, you can tell that it serves people in the dark world. There's no way he's here to compete with them. To be blunt, Orgrim is not qualified to compete with the financial system within the world government. Could it be that the Navy still uses his bank to pay wages? This test was just to confirm Orgrim's thoughts. It seems that this guy is quite self-aware. Just understand, the 5 old stars responded first. They are not going to get in trouble with Orgrim on this matter. They can still use the dark world. If you really think about it, this is also a good thing for them. That tiger, should he join the Revolutionary Army now? Wulaoxing suddenly asked. Orgrim was stunned for a moment, and then said with a smile, "Why are you asking me? I'm not from the Revolutionary Army. I just thought you might know some news. After all, it's said that Fisher Tiger has a pretty good relationship with you." Wulaoxing smiled and said. "Forget it, do you take the things you casually say on the sea seriously? Tiger does have some friendship with me, but it's just a casual acquaintance. What kind of person he will become has nothing to do with me. As for whether he has joined the Revolutionary Army, I don't know," Orgrim explained casually. He really didn't hide this from Wulaoxing, because he really didn't know. "Yeah," Wulaoxing murmured softly, and then said, "In that case, if we deal with him, don't we need to pay attention to your attitude? It's as if you have taken care of my attitude before, gee ha 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 ha." Orgrim laughed unceremoniously. "Don't think too much about the Shishibukai and Shanks." The 5 old stars thought for a while and then spoke again. A sneer appeared on Orgrim's face. "Don't think too much. What are you thinking about? Is your world government trying to trick me? There's no need for us to talk about such convoluted words, right?" Orgrim smiled and said. The 5 old stars were silent for a while, and did not deny anything. They said, "In short, in general, we still hope to maintain this tacit understanding with you." "Luckily, so am I," Orgrim said with a grin. Although it was obvious that the world government and the Navy wanted Shanks to become the king of the Shishibukai, Orgrim didn't think it was too much. Everyone seemed to be cooperating. But they don't wear a pair of pants, and it's normal for them to plot against each other. Didn't he also secretly invest in the Revolutionary Army? He still didn't hide it from the world government, and one can imagine his intentions. Don't let this kind of environment that is fought but not broken be allowed to just destroy it and cause a full-scale war. In this environment, it is beneficial to both parties to maintain some cooperation in interests. The relationship between big people like them is sometimes so complicated, and they want to be simpler. Can't be simple. But speaking of King Shishibukai, we have new plans recently. Jinbei from Fishman Island, we are going to invite him to join the Shishibukai under the king." The 5 old stars suddenly changed their tone and talked about this matter. Orgrim laughed and said, "What do you mean when you 5 old stars suddenly mentioned Shanks? You thought you were treating me as a fool. After a long time, this is waiting for me. Gee ha 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 ha, what are you telling me? Now, does the world government's recruitment of Prince into the Shishibukai have to be approved by me, Orgrim? Interesting, very good, then I will approve this matter." Orgrim laughed and said. On the other side of the 5 old stars, the faces were a little embarrassed by Orgrim's words. But they felt a little relieved in their hearts. This guy Jinbei has now become a pirate. The world government is preparing to use him as a link to restart the icy relationship with Fishman Island. But he is afraid that Jinbei has changed his family at this time. He has two choices. The first one is to join the Whitebeard pirates, but currently there is no what news and intelligence. Second, he joined the Warhammer pirates. With the current situation on Fishman Island, the 5 old stars think it is more likely that he will join the Warhammer pirates. Let's explore Orgrim here to confirm what Jinbei's position is now. Judging from Orgrim's answer, Jinbei probably has not joined the Warhammer pirates. Then the matter of including him in the Shishibukai can be arranged. They were afraid that Jinbei had already found his family at this time. They didn't know the news and rushed over, only to be rejected by Jinbei. How embarrassing would that be? As for what happened behind the scenes, it doesn't matter who Jinbei joins, he won't gain the trust of the world government anyway. The title of King Shishibukai is just a cover to restart the relationship with Fishman Island. As long as there is this cover, the world government has reason to carry out various actions, and this is enough. You don't care if Jinbei is in the world government, where is his heart? The 5 old stars learned a lot from this conversation with Orgrim. Even though Orgrim, a bastard, would have a thorn in his words, he would criticize them. But it's enough to gain enough, and it also confirms Orgrim's current attitude. No matter what he thinks, his attitude has not changed, and that's enough. People like Orgrim and his attitude are very important to the world government. It doesn't matter how many little tricks he makes, as long as he doesn't mean to fall out, that's fine. So, now that you've got Tom, why don't you stop running around in the sea area? Come back to the New World quickly, so that we can all feel more at ease. If you find it inconvenient to go to Fishman Island, we can also give you special permission to go back from Marigio. Isn't Porisalino just in the 7 Waters capital? Don't you want to experience what it's like to be on a warship? The 5 old stars laughed and teased Orgrim. It was obvious that they were worried that Orgrim would continue to run around after he finished his time in the capital of 7 Waters. This guy is a walking troublemaker. Maybe there are no clues or ideas now. But he might just be hopping around, and his head will get hot, and something big will happen. It's better to persuade him to go back to the New World quickly. Gee ha 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 ha, has Mary Joa given permission to pirates like me now? Orgrim couldn't help but laugh. You are special. If you think about it carefully, Doflamingo over there has become the king of the participating countries. Wu Laoxing also smiled slightly and said. Orgrim really wanted to ask them, aren't they afraid that he will mess around in Marijoya and destroy it? But when I think about it carefully, it seems that everything over there was burned down, and now it has been torn down and rebuilt. If he went to destroy it, he might help Wulaoxing demolish the old city. Huh? Want to catch me as a labor force? Chicken thief. Of course, this is just a joke. However, Orgrim had no intention of going to Marijoya to borrow a passage, and said with a smile, forget it, I will go back to the New World by myself. You don't need to worry about it. I came out this time and I didn't want to do anything. Don't worry too much about the idea of big news. Wulaoxing has a toothache over there, but he just won't tell us whether you will come back or not. But the matter has come to this, and they can't say anything more. Therefore, Wulaoxing could only force a smile and nod his head. You just need to know what you are doing. This situation is hard one for both of us. We hope you can consider these things before you do anything. Gee ha 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 ha, I am always safe in my work, so don't worry. Orgrim laughed. Safe? Yes, it is safe for you, but it has never been safe for us. What should we worry about? However, Wulaoxing didn't say more, but it was still false. He said hypocritically, if you have a chance, come and sit with me at Marijoa. The last meeting was too rushed. Next time, maybe I can invite you to have tea. Orgrim laughed when he heard this and said, gee ha 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 ha, no problem, I will go if I have the chance, and so will you. Don't always stay in Marijoya. How boring is that? Come to the New World when you have time. I will be the banker. Please have a good time and leave you a place to stay in Avalon. Wulaoxing's face twitched, and in the end he made a few silly remarks, and then hung up the phone bug. Orgrim looked at the phone bug in his hand and couldn't help laughing. He suddenly felt that these 5 bad guys, old man, it's quite interesting. I need to keep in touch more in the future. If I don't have anything to do, I can also have some fun. However, it seems that after becoming the Marshal of the Warring States period, he had a great influence on the entire world government system. How long has it been? The world government's big moves come one after another. Orgrim murmured softly. When Cyborg was the admiral of the navy, the world government felt that it had not made much progress, and there had not been a big change in several years. But as soon as Sengoku came to power, a change in rhythm could be seen. The pace is much tighter. The Sengoku dynasty's courage is shown by the unhesitating inclusion of Shanks in the King's Shishibukai system. Then, the world government will restart its relationship with Fishman Island and absorb Jinbei to join the King's kingdom. Shishibukai. In just half a year, these major events have happened, and the days to come are not likely to be peaceful. However, Orgrim did not know that at this time, in the naval garrison in the capital of Seven Waters, Siang, after Shanks followed Porisalino in, he did not directly discuss cooperation. On the contrary, Porisalino took Shanks to meet a person. And this person was the same person Orgrim had just mentioned. The troublesome person I'm thinking about is the Navy's new Grand Admiral, Sengoku. That's right, Sengoku is not at Marine Headquarters, Marineford. Instead, he is in the capital of the Seven Waters. He actually came to meet Shanks in person. Only Porisalino knew about this matter, and even the commander of CP-9 Spangdine did not know. At this time, Sengoku was sitting in the reception room, drinking tea quietly. When Porisalino opened the door and walked in, Shanks saw this guy's figure, and his expression was very surprised. At the same time, he felt a sense of vigilance in his heart. If only Porisalino was here, even if it was the Navy's station, but he still had the confidence to fight out. But he never expected that the Marshal of the Navy was here. This warring statesman was not a guy with a civilian background. He also had real swords and guns, and had killed countless big men on the sea. Guys, the person who stepped on their corpses to get the upper hand. After seeing Shanks, Warring States also had a smile on his lips, and said, "Welcome, Redhead, but there is no need to be so nervous, although I am very nervous. Wish I could kill you here, but, I came here with sincerity this time." This really shocked me, Admiral. Shanks shook his head helplessly and said. However, it seems that this guy from Warring States period, don't you intend to cause any conspiracy here? How about it? Sengoku smiled, then looked at Porisalino and said. It really scared me to death. That guy's eyes wanted to tear me apart. It's getting more and more scary. Kazgarot Orgrim, Porisalino smiled. Warring States rubbed his head with a headache. He never expected that Orgrim would secretly come to the capital of Seven Waters just like him. In fact, despite the fact that the capital of Seven Rivers is very depressed now, in fact, it is still the center of the Navy's warship production, and there are naturally a lot of eyewitnesses here. Otherwise, Roger would have been discovered as soon as he came up. What's more, although there is North propaganda is still very hidden, but the Naval Marshal Senguo is here after all. The Navy here must not cheer up. Therefore, as soon as Orgrim arrived in the capital of Seven Waters, he was actually discovered by the Navy. The Naval Marshal of Sengoku was almost frightened at that time. Damn it, Orgrim suddenly came here. Could it be that he knew I was here and had prepared a surprise for me? Not to mention, if Orgrim brought the elite of the Warhammer pirates with him, he, the newly promoted Navy Marshal, might end up in the capital of Seven Waters. Even with Porisalino here, they might not be able to escape. Fortunately, the development of things was not so bad. Warring States was just a false alarm. That guy Orgrim probably didn't know he was here, but went to find that Fishman Tom. On Orgrim's side, he really didn't expect that Sengoku would come here. If he had known about it in advance, he would have definitely brought someone over to fall out with the Navy without saying a word, no matter what he thought. Killing a new Marshal of the Navy here is a huge benefit that is guaranteed to be earned. For this, it is worth paying such a heavy price and falling out with the world government directly. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 440. In short, it seems that Orgrim did not know that he, the naval marshal of the Warring States period, was in the capital of Seven Waters. So the Warring States period no longer worries about these things. He couldn't afford to offend that Orgrim guy, so he could just sneak in and get things done here. As for getting Orgrim a hand? After all, Orgrim didn't bring any powerful cotters with him this time. It's just Vincent from the Fishmen tribe. Vincent is the helmsman of Orgrim and can be regarded as the core cotter. But he has always been a technical civilian. In Avalon, he also opened a shipbuilding yard. His participation in several large and small wars was at the helm. In terms of strength, there's not much to say. As for the Warring States period, they have a naval base and Admiral Porosalino. If Shanks is really negotiated, there will be many more kings to conquer the Shichibukai. They are all top-notch masters. If they want to defeat Orgrim, they should be able to do so. But the hammer flip is useless, why can't he run away? As for whether Orgrim can be killed, Warring States has no idea. If we lay a dragnet here, that's not bad. The three of them can, at most, defeat Orgrim. It is almost impossible to catch him. There is no point in doing this. Instead, it will break up with Orgrim. The relationship between the current world government and him, which had eased, was shattered again. This is different whether it is the next deployment of the Navy or the attitude towards the world government. Therefore, the Warring States period was not prepared to engage in Orgrim. Just pretend he never came. Shanks was also observing Sengoku's attitude at this time and found that the Navy general had no intention of provoking Orgrim. He also felt a little emotional in his heart. Look, that guy Orgrim is clearly under the eyes of the Navy Marshal. But unfortunately, the Marshal of the Navy did not dare to provoke him easily. It is conceivable that this bastard's influence on the Navy and the world may be greater than he estimated. Compared with him, I am still far behind. After all, if I want to enter the New World and compete with these people, I have to find a way to get the status of King Shichibukai and gain the support of these navy. Well, being a pirate and doing this is really uncomfortable. But Shanks didn't dwell on anything anymore. The fact that he is here means that a decision has been made. He sat down with Porosalino and didn't worry about whether Sengoku would drug him. Anyway, he picked up the teacup on the table and drank it. No wine, Shanks asked while drinking tea. Compared with drinking tea, he prefers drinking. Perhaps most of the pirates are like this, and only the Warhammer pirates are special. Because Ogre, although Mew also drinks, he prefers tea on weekdays. Over time, all of his subordinates prefer tea. I have no intention of drinking with pirates yet, Marshal Warring States smiled and said. You came here in person and said you were sincere, but now you say these words, it really chills me. Shanks curled his lips and said. He did not continue to debate whether to drink or drink tea. The Warring States Marshal did not pay attention to the meaning of Shanks's words. Instead, he said, Red Hair, since you are here too, this means that you should not reject Wangxia Shichibukai. So, tell me about your conditions. The first point is to pardon the crimes of former members of the Roger Pirates, Shanks said softly. He was from the Roger Pirates, so the first thing that came to his mind was naturally this kind of question. However, Sengoku said without hesitation, this is impossible. The Roger Pirates' crimes cannot be pardoned. Moreover, even if I am the Marshal of the Navy, I have no right to pardon them. This is special. Shanks had a toothache, but he also knew in his heart that this was a bit whimsical. But before he could speak, the Warring States Marshal continued, however, although there will still be no change on the surface, secretly, we can stop pursuing them. This can be regarded as my concession and sincerity to you. In fact, the Warring States period is where the white wolf comes with nothing. To be honest, so far, the Navy has stopped most of its pursuit of the Roger pirates a few years ago. Because it doesn't make much sense at all. Roger himself was dead. Although his death was not very popular with the Navy, he was indeed dead. And his death also means that the Roger pirates have become a thing of the past. It's not like they haven't spent a lot of money to track down those bastards from the Roger pirates before, but whether it's Rayleigh or Jabba, these big guys are hiding very deep and can't be caught. Rayleigh couldn't find anyone at all. According to Jabba's words, he had been spotted several times, but it was meaningless. The Marines who were chasing him were killed immediately, and it was too late for the headquarters to provide support. And as the tide of the Great Pirate Age becomes more and more turbulent, even if the Navy's strength is expanded every year, it is still somewhat inadequate and stretched. There are so many pirates causing trouble on the sea, so don't catch them. On the contrary, if you spend a lot of money to catch them who have stopped causing trouble, isn't that a mental illness? Therefore, the Navy headquarters has stopped its large-scale manhunt and secret investigation of the Roger pirates for many years. It's not that I really don't care about them, I just treat them as ordinary pirates, and there is no special action team formed. If you come across one, grab it. If you don't come across it, don't go out and look for it. Shanks is actually a former crew member of the Roger pirates, so he is vaguely aware of this. After all, he wasn't very low-key before. Although he didn't deliberately cause trouble, the world government and the Navy seemed to have a turn-a-blind-eye attitude towards him. But he still couldn't figure it out. He didn't know whether it was because he had not boarded Raf Drua, or because this was the attitude of the world government and the Navy. Making this request at this time can be regarded as a test. And the Warring States Marshal gave this condition with sincerity, and Shanks understood what was going on. It is estimated that the Navy no longer pays attention to these. There was nothing to worry about. Although he felt like he was being paid for free by this guy Sengoku, Shanks didn't feel angry at all. Okay, let's make the agreement like this, Shanks nodded and said. After that, Shanks put forward a few more conditions, and the Warring States Marshal bargained with him. In short, they both made concessions, and they almost got it together. Then, there was the treaty between the king and the Shishibukai. If the king of the Shishibukai does not take the initiative to do something that is openly facing the world government, it will cause huge loss of interests to the Navy. The Navy and the world government will allow them to obtain legal plundering authority. In other words, Shanks will not be able to rob in the future. It's illegal. But this actually doesn't mean much to the red-haired pirates. They do commit robberies, but rarely, and the crimes are not very serious. Moreover, they prefer to rob illegal gains. I don't know if they are in a position to oppose Austria Grimm's hostility. Anyway, they prefer those who torment the dark world. Then, there will be an amnesty, which will pardon Shanks and the members of the red-haired pirates for their previous crimes, and the bounties will also stop. From then on, as long as they are still the king, if the Shisibukai's policies don't change, then the crimes they commit will be turned a blind eye. If you have the ability, you can imitate Doflamingo and become the king of a franchised country. After all these things have been discussed, there is actually nothing left to talk about on the matter of the king's Shishibukai. The Warring States Marshal had a smile on his lips at this time. The negotiation was quite satisfactory. The expression on Shanks's face was not very cold. It could be seen that he also got some of what he wanted. Afterwards, Warring States took a sip of tea and looked at the table from the side. He went up, picked up the contract of King Shishibukai, handed it to Shanks and said, "Come on, you sign this, then from now on, you will officially become the 5th King Shishibukai. If you don't go out, if anything unexpected happens, in the next few days, the news about your inauguration as king of the Shishibukai will be spread around the world via the world news." Shanks took over the Shichibukai contract from warring states. He knew in his heart that this was just a process. A contract could not restrict the two of them at all. So there was no hesitation and he took it. After coming over, he wrote his name on it. However, after the name fell, he felt a little complicated and emotional. How did he get to this point? It's all Orgrim's fault. But that's it, there is no need to regret it. He, Shanks, has always been a forward-looking person. The Shichibukai under the king is nothing more than a profit cooperation. From now on, everyone can rely on their own abilities. After the Warring States period saw Shanks sign his name, also nodded with satisfaction. No matter what, today Shanks can become King Shichibukai, even if he didn't come in vain. After putting the documents away again, a gleam flashed in Sengoku's eyes, and he said, "Well, now we are a cooperative alliance, and it's time to talk about some serious things." Shanks also had a smile on his lips, and said, "I can probably guess why you asked me to join the King's Shichibukai, and that's why I agreed." "That's fine, then I don't need to be polite to you. I plan to use you as the sharp knife of the King's Shichibukai to penetrate into the New World." Warring States nodded and said. However, the current Warring States period does not intend to change the pattern of the four emperors. Again, the navy is not strong enough in the New World. Even if it changes, it will not be able to blend in and can only be treated as a bastard. And Shanks doesn't have the strength now, he just planted a seed. Then, Sengoku talked to Shanks about these things. When he said that he would provide certain help and support to Shanks, he was not just talking empty words. After that, the Navy can share intelligence with Shanks to a certain extent. In some less conspicuous places, you can also provide him with some help within your ability. Next, there are supplies and so on, which can provide him with the latest artillery and ammunition supplies. In fact, for the most part, except for information, Shanks didn't care much about this support. He only has one ship now. How many artillery pieces can he install? Intelligence is indeed very important. He does not have the ability in this area. The Navy can make up for his shortcomings. However, the authenticity of the information here still needs to be carefully considered. Furthermore, some permissions are also very restrictive. However, he didn't think there was anything abnormal. If the Navy was really transparent with him about the information, it would be sick. He also needs to seriously doubt whether the Navy has a conspiracy. That's all for now. If I encounter any problems that I can't solve, I'll continue to add more. Shanks nodded and said. Of course, but only in terms of cooperation between us. Sengoku also nodded and said. As for the big pirates in the New World, there is no problem in adding more in the future. Shanks, don't think too much about anything else. Shanks didn't care and said then, can you talk about our goals? The Warring States Marshal's expression became a little more serious, and he said, of course, our intended goal is Hosgarot Orgrim. Shanks said softly. However, Sengoku's words made him a little surprised. Big Mom Charlotte Lingling, Sengoku said softly. As soon as he finished speaking, Shanks was completely confused. What's going on? Don't you take a fancy to the natural hostility between me and Orgrim? I thought, he wants to kill Orgrim. What's going on, Charlotte Lingling?